I bid you all good morning, good evening, and good night. Whoever watches this transmission, it is I, Mike Martins, the true voice of the Commonwealth, connecting the dots across the Commonwealth and finding out what is going on as the world is going bat poop crazy. Let's take a look at what's in the headlines. If you haven't yet, guys, don't forget to check out our last episode on Odyssey of Mike in the Night, episode 464. The last episode of Mike in the Night, 464. You're going to want to watch it, and you're going to want to watch the last caller. Big eye-opener with the last caller. Lots of things coming down the pipeline, and things are getting a lot worse, and something's going to have to give sometime, somehow, somewhere, where logic comes back into full swing. And we are seeing it happening as the world is protesting again, 2022, the year of the protest. Toronto. Now let's head over to the housing market in Canada, because this is going to affect a lot of people living in the West. Now, this has happened, again, in Canada, California. We live in California here, where all of Canada pretty much became California in 2014. And blue states of America, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and Ireland, and everywhere has been basically suffering with housing affordability crisis. And it's a big issue. So let's take a look at how this is going to affect everybody on the ground that rents, that's homeless, that owns, that's selling, that's buying. Toronto saw 0 new single-family homes sold. Condo prices trim $30,000 in a month. That's from our friends over at Better Dwelling, and that is from today's date. Greater Toronto's new construction housing has seen a demand completely vaporize. Data from Build GTA at Atlas Group show new construction sales fell 90% in September. Prices are now falling, especially for condos, which saw a $30,000 drop in the month. The segment was mostly bought by investors which have disappeared. So we talked about this. What investors? People say, well, Canada would be in a recession without money laundering. Again, Better Dwelling. And this is back from 2019 of May, and a lot of gems in last week's BC money laundering report, but the biggest one wasn't about the province. The report's numbers suggest that Canada's fastest growing industries is washing money. And there it is right there. We've been discussing this in great depth, in great detail, and going into the graphs, the numbers showing that Canadian wages are not going up near where they need to be for people to afford housing. Government jobs have gone up. Government jobs have outstripped wages from the private sector that actually funds the public sector. And we are in a world of hurt in countries like Canada and independent states like California, Oregon, Washington, these New York, Massachusetts. These blue states are facing the same problems with mass exoduses of people that used to pay those taxes in those states that are moving to better, greener lands. And they're headed to where? Florida, where this is becoming a major issue down south in Florida. Ron DeSantis, all elections around the country affect Florida. Watch what he says right here. Florida has a stake in the races across the country. Governor Ron DeSantis said during a weekend faith, family, and freedom event, explaining people vote with their feet and often flock to the Sunshine State when Democrat leadership reigns in their state. So when the Democrats take over, we talked about this blue wave that's going to be headed from the eastern seaboard. We made a 2017 video. In 2018, we refollowed it, talking about California and the blue wave from all the way from Vancouver, Canada to Tijuana, Mexico border. You will see Tijuana, U.S.-Mexico border. You'll see a wave of people moving east, heading east, and flocking east to find credibility, to be able to exercise the freedom of speech, the freedom to bear arms and all that stuff. And this is becoming and fleeing towards logic and moving towards logic. And another hit here for Brazil were another fixed election. I still haven't met a single person that voted for this guy down in Brazil, and I know a lot of people down in Brazil, and I was looking at forums and different discussion groups. Thousands of people were organized to go vote for the opposition of Lula, and unfortunately Bolsonaro, of course, the Donald Trump of Brazil. Now, Lula presidential win boost for Brazil, China ties, BRICS experts say. Again, so we won't be having a one world government because it won't work with the BRICS nations. And it's kind of weird in a way where it's kind of stopping a one world government, but it's also the amount of election fixing, election rigging, and stealing of people's futures and lives. And the Lula government was in prison. He's a criminal. Built strong ties with Beijing and helped to establish BRICS Forum. So China is very happy that they got Brazil back on where it needs to be through election meddling and election fixing. And there he is right there. Yeah! Woo! Launder more money! So there it is right there. Launder more money. So there it is. Energy security or clean energy. So there it is. Germany dismantles wind farm to expand legit coal mine. I can't even pronounce that. It's a type of coal, and apparently it burns cleaner than other coals. With winter around the corner, Europe giving priority to energy sector over clean energy. In Germany, a wind farm is being dismantled to make way for an expansion of an open pit lignite coal mine. Sorry about that. So there it is. The dismantling of the last wind turbine and wind farm to close to the German coal mine. So there it is right there. And gale force hypocrisy. German Greens kill wind farm for coal mine, open mine. So there it is. Now Poland is asking, is Germany a friend or foe? New poll asks Polish citizens what they think of their neighbor. So movements and pieces and chess pieces are being put in play because we're headed for a really big hot war in the next year or so. So a new poll from Poland asks Poles for their attitudes on Germany. Why are they asking? Well, because Poland was playing Russian roulette. We said it back in the spring, back in the spring of 2022, where Poland to ban Russian oil imports as German government urged to save energy. Well, the German government was putting pressure on the Polish governments, telling them we need to stop Russia in its track. We need to stop its energy. We don't want its energy. Now, come winter, they flip the script and blame Russia for not selling them energy, even though Poland was bad-mouthing Russia. You see how it works? You bad-mouth them in the spring, and then when winter arrives, guess what? We want your energy, and we're going to pit you as the bad guys. So there it is. That's us saying that back in March 30th of 2022. And they're, of course, going to flip the script. You can find that video on Odyssey because it was banned off of YouTube. And Argentina clinches agreement with the Paris Club. Bad news for, again, countries being impoverished. And a lot of these governments that were illegally voted in are going back to Argentina's Super Minister Sergio Massa Friday announced a deal has been reached with the Paris Club for the repayment of Argentina's debt amounting to $1.97 billion. And although there was no capital reduction, unthinkable as the Paris Club bylaws. So there it is. And this is going to impoverish Argentinian citizens. And people are... So what's the Paris Club? Again, a group of officials of major creditor countries whose role is to find coordinated and sustainable solutions to the payment of difficulties experienced by debtor countries as debtor countries undertake reforms to stabilize and restore their macroeconomy and financial situation. The Paris Club creditors provide an appropriate debt treatment, and a lot of these countries could be fully independent off the grid. Argentina is big enough to be off the grid. It's got the manpower, it's got the minerals, it's got the fabrication, it's got the exports. It doesn't need debt treatment, right? So that's the problem here, and that's how they're impoverishing. Now let's take a look at what's going down in Colombia, actually really big. Colombia's oil industry in jeopardy as cocaine production soars to a new record. This is not clickbait or fake news. Left-wing Senator Gustavo Petro's electoral victory, that was very fixed election too in Colombia. He was inaugurated, so he's a leftist president again. As Colombia's 34th president saw a wave of optimism stream across the strife-torn country. And there it is. Sorry, my neighbor's cutting his grass all of a sudden. Sorry about that, guys. Anti-government protests planned across Colombia for Saturday. So there it is. Anti-government marches are scheduled across Colombia on Saturday, the largest taking place in the country's two main cities of Bogotá and Medellín, promoted by the right-wing political parties, coalitions, and business associations. The protests are directed against the leftist President Gustavo Petro, who has yet to complete 100 days in office. So there's been a lot of protesting against this new Colombian regime president that was put in, that represents the leftists and leftist ideology and destroying Colombia by its wayside. And sorry guys, the neighbor's just cutting the grass all of a sudden. I'm sorry if you hear that really loud there in the background. Really sorry about that. So what was 2019? 2019 was the year of the protest in every corner of the globe. So 2019, when historians look back at 2019, the story of the year will not be in turmoil, surrounded by Donald Trump. So there it is. 2019 was the year of the protest. The entire planet was protesting, and we already knew what was going to happen in 2020. We predicted it in summer of 2019, what they were going to do when they pulled the trigger on the you-know-what. And there it is, protests around the world where people were protesting no confidence in their governments or their government system or their government legislator or legislation or what was happening. And again, they're going to tax us to death. They're going to fine us to death. They made sure that wages were not in line with housing. They made sure they impoverished us. They made sure that people that owned housing tapped into their debts or used their homes as ATM machines so they could fund their basic way of life. And I wanted to put this out there for you guys because I think it's very important on what's happening around the world and how we're connected to the dots around the world, across the Commonwealth, figuring out what is happening, how it's affecting us at the household, because that's exactly what's happening. They've divided us at the household level, and they've destroyed the fabric of what it meant to be a basic human being with respect and dignity and looking at logic and actually truly trusting the science when it actually meant something. Anyways, guys, Mike Martins here, signing off, the voice of the Commonwealth. Thanks for joining. World going bat poop crazy. Today is Halloween. Have a safe and happy Halloween. It is October 31st. Hope everybody is doing well, 2022. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. Mike Martins here. I have spoken.